Hey guys, it's Jackie. So, I just got done watching the third episode of HBO's The Last of Us series, and there's quite a lot different. It's probably the most deviated from the source material so far, at least, and this episode is pretty much dedicated to the um, development of Bill's character, but not just Bill, but also Frank. It's kind of different from the video games. We don't actually like see too much of Frank. Um, and again, I'm trying not to spoil anything, but basically, we get more of Bill. I mean, we start out in the beginning of the episode with Joel and Ellie, and this is after Tess made her heroic sacrifice so that they could get away from all the infected. She did that whole um, explosion thing, but yeah, and so we're kind of seeing some of that and see the kind of how they're dealing with that and how they're going to move forward and all that. And they kind of stop to, you know, get supplies and stuff. And yeah, it kind of goes through that for a while. And then we go to pretty much what the whole episode is about. We go to a flashback to 2003, which is this show's perspective of when the cordyceps pandemic sort of started, because the current year, according to this show, is the year 2023, which that is the current year in real life, and that's probably another reason why they kind of wanted to release it more to where it's like, okay, we're in like the same exact year, and there's this show that also takes place there, and it's also pandemic related, and obviously, that's other stuff that we can discuss later. But anyway, so basically, in the flashback, we see a lot of people in this town that are being rounded up by the military, and basically they're being taken. They're said that they're being taken to like a quarantine zone where they'll be safe and all that. Except for one guy, which is Bill. He's in this like underground bunker with he has security monitors, and he's got like a shit ton of guns and other weapons, and basically he kind of just waits it out. The military, they don't ever find him, and so they go off with all the civilians, and pretty much after that they are all alone, and he only goes up to like gather supplies and basically get all the necessities to survive. He sets up traps around a kind of perimeter, kind of like he does in the games. He has like traps set up, and a lot of what we see is pretty similar to the game, with some deviations. And we actually get to see how Bill met Frank, which is kind of a, not, well, it's less than ideal, I guess you could say. Frank ended up falling into one of the traps. Like there's like it was like a hole that probably had something covering it. But anyway, so Bill ends up finding Frank, and obviously having this survivalist mentality, kind of he kind of has a prepper kind of attitude, and so basically, there's a little bit of distrust there, but eventually Frank kind of convinces him to, let him out, and that he's just, he's not going to be a threat. Um, and before I get too ahead of myself, Frank is played by Nick Offerman. You might recognize him from certain more comedy type stuff like Parks and Rec, I believe, and yeah, other stuff like that. And Murray Bartlett plays Frank, and I'm sure you probably recognize him too. But anyway, so Frank, um, you know, basically, he kind of mentions that he's, um, you know, kind of hungry, hasn't eaten for a long time, and slowly but surely, Bill kind of just is like, okay, I can go ahead and do that, but he still obviously has some, like again, there's that mentality of being a survivalist or prepper and all that. But it really, it kind of shows, that maybe they didn't meet in exactly an ideal situation. But Bill goes ahead and allows Frank into his home, and allows him to take a shower, and he serves him food as well, and things I think kind of escalate a little bit when Frank. I guess there's this piano that used to belong to Bill's mother, and I guess Frank kind of was intrigued by it, and he tries to play one of the songs, and then that kind of triggers a sort of memory, and also kind of making him realize his loneliness, because I think the song is like, I don't remember exactly the words, but it's like a love song kind of thing from way back. It's like an oldie. So things kind of escalate from there, and yeah, I know there's it shouldn't have to be addressed, but Bill and Frank, being romantically involved. I mean, that was in the game. I mean, there was a lot of things different, of course, and I don't want to spoil it exactly, but that's very much what their relationship was, and I mean, some people might not be too keen on that, and that's their problem. I mean, you know, and to call it a gay love story, like, it's a love story between two men, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, love is love, and so they do kind of uh, portray a little bit of, they do go in bed together, and they the show doesn't really show any of the sex scenes happening, which is odd because HBO, like way back in the day, they used to embrace all the sex and violence and all that. I mean, with True Blood and Boardwalk Empire and Game of Thrones, which is probably a little more well known and a little more recent. And then of course there's House of the Dragon, and that's Game of Thrones origin kind of thing. Uh, but we kind of get a bit of that. It doesn't really show. It's not really explicit. There was also quite a few time jumps, and we kind of get to a point where and there's like really small details about their kind of how they go about their daily lives, and kind of what Frank wants, and kind of what Bill sort of fears about, and kind of really the show overall, it's been all about the characters and not so much about like what elements from the video game specifically, or like the action set pieces, or like you know pretty much all the stuff that we get to do in the game. This show, it's much more about developing the characters, And we actually do get to see Tess again, played by Anna Torv, and Joel is also in the flashback, and it's to show that you know them and Frank, and Bill, they kind of got to know each other, kind of have kind of an arrangement with trading with for supplies and all that. So we get some of that, and yeah, and it's there's a lot of stuff that I guess I will mention that we do get to a point where we kind of have Bill and Frank having to kind of face like well a situation, and I still don't want to spoil exactly what it is, but the difference from this episode and with the game is that Joel and Ellie do, in the game they meet Bill, and they're trying to get a car battery, which has actually been more of a main thing in this show. From the beginning, they've been, it's all about the car battery and, trying to get, you know, possibly go and find Tommy and possibly, start some kind of life that's better than being, constantly monitored by a military presence, something like that. But basically, we don't get that in this episode. Joel and Ellie, they don't encounter Bill like in the game. Again, don't want to spoil anything really. And there's one thing that there's actually a bit that I have problems with. Like, I think the love story with Bill and Frank is done a lot better than it was in the game. I still love the Last of Us video game, but again, there's some things where I'm like, okay, maybe this could have been done better, and I think the HBO series did very well. Again, they're trying to focus more on the characters and more on the, there's kind of the storytelling, but they also leave out quite a few things. Uh, but whenever Joel and Ellie they get you know what they came for, and they finally dress into their iconic clothes, because before they were just wearing like a whatever t-shirt, whatever jacket or something. But in this one it seems like, okay, now we're getting geared up for a little bit more of what the video game is like. At least it seems that way. But again, there's some things they kind of sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I was contemplating whether to do this review or not, because I am still a little bit sick. But basically, there's this line that Joel says, and this is like taken it directly from the game, but it's kind of out of place, like quite literally out of place. He says, to Ellie, like, Ellie, who, says, like, I kind of want to talk about Tess, or about Tess, not necessarily worded that like that in the game, but uh, basically, he's like, don't bring up Tess. Like, I'll go ahead and take you wherever you need to go, but, you don't bring up Tess. Don't tell anyone about your condition, because they'll just shoot you. They won't think it through or not or anything like that. And then he's like, let's just keep our histories to ourselves. And I feel like they should have had that at the start of the episode, because there's, again, the thing I don't want to spoil. He, Joel kind of realizes, he kind of does have a purpose to protect, and, the people that he loves, to protect Tess. Unfortunately, you couldn't do that. Tess is obviously dead. And, I feel like what this leads up to, with them, getting the truck and the car battery and getting all that to work, and go on their way to where they need to go. Joel is suggests taking her to Tommy because he used to be a Firefly, and the Fireflies need Ellie for to make a vaccine or a cure or whatever they call it. I feel like you know there's very short amount of time between that and then now it's like, okay, Joel is maybe not too terribly cold about it, but it's like I feel like because in the game when after Tess died, after she was killed, uh, basically, Joel and Ellie, they kind of go through some stuff. They eventually get to safety, and then they have that kind of conversation where Joel's like, let's keep our histories to ourselves. I felt like that should have been either at the end of episode 2 or the beginning of this episode. And then slowly we kind of see Joel sort of his layers kind of going away, and he's kind of now opening up a little bit to Ellie and kind of being like, she's, much more of a companion, and kind of, because pretty much what it's supposed to come up to is that it's kind of a father-daughter relationship is kind of what it ends up evolving into. And that's one of the things we really liked about the video games is the father-daughter relationship kind of developing with those two. But I felt like he should have done like that should have been not before they get the truck and kind of they have this thing that's kind of again a remix of the game where Ellie kind of has like the cassette tape, which is like has a lot of old music, which is the same. It shows like the same song. The it plays the same song that Frank and uh, had played, on the piano, and Bill and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I felt like that was kind of placed out of order with the like, oh, let's keep our histories to ourselves. I'm like, that should have been earlier in the episode, or at least at the end of last episode. But overall, the episode was pretty good. I have very little to say about it. Just the whole Joel kind of being like, let's keep our history to ourselves, kind of being cold towards Ellie. And oh, now, it's like, okay, we're listening to music in the truck and we're going on a road trip. I felt like they shouldn't have placed it like that. That seems kind of weird to me. And yeah, I felt like they should have done it a little differently than that. Felt like they should have done it like in the game where it's almost right after Tess dies. Joel has this, don't talk about Tess, don't, you know, tell anyone about your condition, being immune or whatever. It's like, they're not gonna think it through. They're just gonna shoot you, and like, let's just keep our histories to ourselves. I feel like that should have been first, long before they get over to Bill and Frank's town and get the truck and everything. But that's really the only thing I'm like not really vibing with. But I do think the whole thing with Bill and Frank and their love story, I think it's done a little bit better, because in the video game, Bill is kind of an asshole. Just and this, again, it's a huge deviation, but I think they definitely did it better here. But anyway, So overall, I thought it was a fairly good episode. I still want to keep watching it and kind of see what they do. Unfortunately, there's still no bow for Joel. It's kind of sad. I was hoping that Joel would like end up finding this or something. Take out a few clickers. But maybe next episode, maybe in a couple episodes, or not. Maybe. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the Last of Us um, episode 3. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed watching this. If you did, like, subscribe, and I'll catch y'all later.